It all began with a kiss when we were drunk in college. Now, 5 years later, I still think about how soft Casey's lips felt and how we never said a word about it. I remember everything about that night, the music pounding through the frat house walls, the sticky floor beneath our feet, the way her eyes found mine across the crowded room. She had been dancing, her curls bouncing with every movement, and when she stumbled toward me, laughing at something I couldn't hear over the noise, I caught her. "Mira!" she shouted, her breath warm and sweet with whatever punch they'd been serving. "Dance with me!" I shook my head, smiling. I wasn't much of a dancer, but she grabbed my hands anyway, pulling me close, and suddenly we were swaying together, her forehead pressed against mine. The world narrowed to just us, just her brown eyes looking into mine with something I couldn't name. And then she kissed me. It was soft, tentative, like a question. My heart stopped. Every nerve in my body came alive. I kissed her back, just for a moment, tasting cherry, chapstick, and possibility. But then someone bumped into us, breaking the spell, and Casey pulled away, laughing like nothing had happened. The next morning, she didn't remember. Or at least, she pretended not to, and I let her. I told myself it was just the alcohol, just a moment that meant nothing. But I knew the truth. I had been falling for my best friend long before that kiss, and now there was no going back. 5 years later, here we are. Still best friends, still living together, still pretending that night never happened. Our apartment is small, a fourth-floor walk-up with creaky floors and a heater that barely works in winter. But it's ours. Casey's advertising posters cover one wall, all bold colors and clever taglines. My bookshelves line another, overflowing with novels I've edited and ones I'm still reading. The fire escape outside my window has become my sanctuary, the place where I sit on warm evenings and watch the city lights flicker on one by one. I'm a book editor. I spend my days reading other people's love stories, fixing their grammar, making their words shine. It's funny, really. I help authors craft perfect romances while my own heart stays locked away, too afraid to speak its truth. Casey works in advertising. She's all energy and charm, always rushing to meetings, always on her phone with clients who can't make up their minds. She comes home exhausted most nights, but she always has a smile for me. Always. Our friendship is comfortable. We know each other's rhythms. I make coffee in the morning while she's still half asleep, stumbling around the kitchen. She orders takeout on Friday nights because she knows I've been staring at manuscripts all week and can't think about cooking. We watch reruns of The L Word on our worn-out couch, quoting our favorite lines and arguing about which characters should have ended up together. We tease each other constantly. She jokes about my stressful job as if reading romance novels all day is hard work. I laugh at her for dealing with impossible clients who change their minds every 5 minutes. "At least my characters don't talk back," I told her once. "Yeah, but they also don't pay your rent," she shot back with a grin. It's easy between us. Natural. Except for the part where I'm desperately in love with her and can't say a word. One evening, Casey came home looking more exhausted than usual. She dropped her bag by the door with a heavy thud and flopped onto the couch face first, not even bothering to take off her shoes. "Rough day?" I asked, walking over with a glass of wine already in hand. I knew her well enough to see it coming. She turned her head to look at me, her face pressed into a cushion. "If my client changes the design one more time, I swear I'm quitting and opening a bakery." I laughed, handing her the wine. "You don't even know how to bake." She sat up, taking the glass and grinning despite her obvious fatigue. "Then I'll sell toast and call it modern, artisanal toast. People pay $15 for that now." "You're ridiculous," I said. but I was smiling. God, I loved making her smile. We ordered Thai food, our usual compromise when neither of us could decide, and settled in for another night of television. Casey kicked off her shoes and curled up beside me on the couch, tucking her feet under her. As the episode played, I felt her gradually relax, her body sinking deeper into the cushions, her breathing slowing. And then, so naturally it seemed like nothing at all, she rested her head on my shoulder. My heart stopped. Actually stopped. I sat perfectly still, afraid that any movement might break this moment, might make her pull away. Her hair smelled like her coconut shampoo, and I could feel the warmth of her breath against my neck. I looked down at her. Really looked at her. The freckles scattered across her nose like constellations. The way her eyelashes fluttered as she drifted towards sleep. Her lips, slightly parted, soft and perfect. The same lips I'd kissed 5 years ago and never stopped thinking about. My hand moved on its own, gently brushing a curl behind her ear. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. "I wish I could tell you," I whispered, so quietly I barely heard myself. "I wish you knew how much I love you." But I couldn't tell her. I couldn't risk this. What if she didn't feel the same way? What if I ruined everything? What if I lost the one person who meant more to me than anyone else in the world? So I sat there, holding perfectly still, memorizing every detail of this moment while my heart ached with everything I couldn't say. Eventually, she fell fully asleep, her weight comfortable against me. I stayed awake long into the night, the television playing scenes I didn't watch, my mind racing with all the what-ifs and maybes that haunted me every single day. When morning came, we woke up tangled together on the couch. My neck was stiff, my legs numb from not moving, but none of that mattered compared to the feeling of her arm draped across my waist, her face inches from mine. Her eyes opened slowly, and for one perfect second, she just looked at me. Really looked at me. There was something in her expression soft, wondering, almost tender. My breath caught, but then reality seemed to crash back in. She blinked, sat up quickly, and stretched her arms above her head, yawning loudly. "God, my back," she groaned, rolling her shoulders. "We really need to stop falling asleep on this couch." "Yeah," I managed, my voice rough with sleep and disappointment. "Probably." She jumped up, already moving toward the kitchen. "I'll make coffee," she called out. And then she was singing loudly and completely off-key some pop song I didn't recognize. I sat there for a moment, trying to push down the ache in my chest. This was how it always went. We'd have these moments, these almost moments, and then she'd pull away, act like nothing happened, like we were just friends doing normal friend things. Maybe that's all we were to her. Maybe I was reading into everything, seeing signs that weren't there, building castles out of sand that would wash away with the next wave. I went to my room and opened my laptop, staring at the manuscript I was supposed to be editing. It was a romance, of course. Everything I touched was romance. This one was about 2 women, best friends since childhood, who finally admitted their feelings for each other after years of dancing around the truth. I read the same paragraph 3 times without absorbing a single word. The main character was afraid of losing her best friend, afraid of taking the risk, afraid of everything I felt every single day. "This is too real," I muttered, closing the laptop. I couldn't work on this today. I couldn't read about someone else's happy ending when my own story felt stuck in the middle, going nowhere. I heard Casey humming in the kitchen, the clink of mugs, the smell of coffee drifting through the apartment. Normal. Everything was so beautifully, painfully normal. That afternoon, Casey burst into my room with the kind of excited energy that meant she'd either gotten a huge promotion or found a really good sale online. "Guess what I got?" she said, waving two small envelopes in the air. I looked up from my phone. "What?" "Tickets," she grinned, bouncing on her toes like a kid on Christmas morning. "To that rooftop jazz bar you love? Tonight." My eyebrows shot up. The rooftop bar was expensive, the kind of place we only talked about going to for special occasions that never quite materialized. "How did you—" "Work thing," she said quickly. "My client gave them to me as a thank you, and I immediately thought of you because I know you've been dying to go. My heart did that stupid fluttery thing it always did when she thought of me." "Casey, that's— wow, thank you." She sat on the edge of my bed, her smile softening. "You deserve a nice night out. You've been working so hard on that manuscript." "So have you," I pointed out, "with your impossible clients." "Exactly. So we both deserve this." She paused, then added, "It'll be fun, just the two of us." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean that place that's literally known for being romantic? The date kind of place?" Casey rolled her eyes, but I caught something flickering across her face. Was it nervousness? "It's not a date. We're just two friends, eating good food and listening to music, like always." "Right," I said, trying to ignore the disappointment settling in my stomach. "Like always." But when she looked at me, there was something different in her eyes, something soft and unreadable, something that made me wonder if maybe, just maybe, she felt it too. "Wear that black dress," she said as she stood up. "The one you never wear because you say you have nowhere fancy to go. Well, now you do." That evening, I stood in front of my closet, staring at the black dress. It had been an impulse purchase a year ago, something I bought because it made me feel beautiful even though I had no occasion to wear it. The fabric was soft, the cut elegant, and when I tried it on, I barely recognized myself. I looked pretty, actually pretty. The dress hugged my curves in all the right places, and for once, I didn't feel like the girl who hid behind oversized sweaters and comfortable jeans. I felt like someone who could be loved, someone who could be wanted. I did my makeup carefully, nothing too dramatic, just enough to bring out my eyes, a bit of lipstick that made me feel bold. When I walked out of my room, Casey was already waiting in the living room. And then she turned around. She was wearing a navy button-up shirt, the one I'd always secretly loved on her, tucked into fitted black pants. Her curls were loose around her shoulders, and she'd put on just a touch of eyeliner that made her eyes impossibly darker, more intense. "Wow," she breathed, looking at me. "Mira, you look—" "You too," I managed, my mouth suddenly dry. "You look beautiful." We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, and the air between us felt charged with something electric, something dangerous. Then she smiled, breaking the spell. "Ready?" "Ready," I said, even though I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be ready for. The rooftop bar was everything I'd imagined and more. Golden lights were strung across the space, creating a warm glow against the darkening sky. The city stretched out below us, a sea of twinkling lights and distant sounds. A jazz quartet played on a small stage, soft, smooth music that made everything feel like a dream. We sat at a small table near the edge, close enough to see the city but private enough to feel like we were in our own world. The waiter brought us drinks, something fruity and pink that tasted like summer, and we sipped them slowly, watching the lights flicker on across the skyline. "This is incredible," I said, unable to keep the wonder out of my voice. Casey smiled, but she was watching me instead of the view. "Yeah, it really is," We talked about everything and nothing. Work stories and funny memories. That time in college when we accidentally locked ourselves out of our dorm room in our pajamas. The terrible apartment we'd looked at before finding our current one. The one with carpets that smelled like wet dog. But beneath all the easy conversation, I could feel something building, something unspoken. Every time our eyes met, I felt it, that pull, that question hanging in the air between us. The music shifted, becoming slower, more intimate. Couples around us were swaying together, lost in their own worlds. Casey took a sip of her drink, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Do you ever think about how different things would be if we hadn't lived together?" she asked quietly. My heart skipped. What kind of question was that? "What do you mean?" She shrugged, but there was tension in her shoulders. "I don't know. Like, would we still be this close? Or would we have drifted apart after college, like most people do?" I wanted to say so many things. I wanted to tell her that I couldn't imagine my life without her. That every morning when I woke up and heard her singing in the kitchen, my day felt complete. The thought of losing her terrified me more than anything else in the world. Instead, I reached across the table and gently tucked a curl behind her ear, my fingers lingering against her cheek for just a moment longer than necessary. She leaned into my touch, her eyes closing briefly. When she opened them again, her face was so close to mine that I could count every freckle, see every fleck of gold in her brown eyes. I thought she might kiss me. God, I wanted her to kiss me. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting. But then the music stopped. The spell broke. The moment slipped away like water through my fingers. Casey pulled back, clearing her throat. "We should probably head home. Early day tomorrow." "Right," I said, trying to hide my disappointment. "Yeah, of course." The ride home was quiet. We sat in the back of the cab, the city lights streaming past the windows, neither of us saying much. But our hands rested on the seat between us, our pinkies almost touching. Almost. Back at the apartment, the air felt different. Heavy, charged with all the things we weren't saying. I stood by the window in the living room, looking out at the city, trying to calm my racing heart. I heard Casey come up behind me. I could feel her presence, warm and close. "Mira," she said softly. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath. This was it. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep loving her in silence, while my heart broke a little more each day. "No," I said, turning to face her. "I need to say something." Her eyes widened slightly. "What is it?" The words I'd been holding back for 5 years pressed against my chest, desperate to escape. This could ruin everything. This could destroy the most important relationship in my life. But staying silent was killing me slowly, and I couldn't do it anymore. "I love you, Casey," I said, my voice shaking but clear. "I've loved you for years, not as a friend. I'm in love with you." Casey stood frozen, her eyes wide, her lips parted in surprise. She didn't say anything. She just stared at me like I'd spoken in a language she didn't understand. The silence stretched between us, terrible and endless. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. What had I done? What had I just done? "Do you remember that night in college?" I continued, unable to stop now that I'd started. "At that party?" We kissed. She nodded slowly, still not speaking. "You were drunk. I thought you forgot. Everyone always said you wouldn't remember, and you never mentioned it, so I took a shaky breath. But I never forgot, Casey. I've never stopped thinking about it. About you." More silence. I could feel tears building behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Not yet." "Say something." I whispered. Please. Casey blinked, and I saw her chest rise and fall with a deep breath. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. I didn't forget. My world tilted. What? That kiss, she said, her eyes finding mine. I didn't forget. I was drunk. Yeah, but not that drunk. I remember everything. She took a step closer. I remember how scared I was the next morning. How I pretended not to remember because I thought you regretted it. I thought if I brought it up, I'd lose you. Casey, I wanted you to kiss me back, she said. And now there were tears in her eyes, too. I've wanted so many things I was too afraid to ask for. The space between us felt like miles and inches at the same time. Neither of us moved. We just stood there, looking at each other. 5 years of unspoken feelings finally hanging in the air between us. And then, like magnets finding their match, we moved toward each other. Our lips met, and the world exploded into color. It wasn't like the kiss at that college party, clumsy and alcohol-flavored and uncertain. This was deliberate. This was real. Her hands came up to cup my face, and I wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her closer, closer, until there was no space left between us. She tasted like the fruity drink from the bar, and something uniquely her, something I'd been craving for 5 years without knowing I could have it. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like we were both afraid this might be another dream that would evaporate in the morning light. But then she made this small sound in the back of her throat, and something inside me broke wide open. I kissed her deeper, pouring 5 years of longing into it, and she responded with the same desperate intensity, her fingers threading through my hair. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and dizzy, she rested her forehead against mine. I can't believe we waited this long, she whispered. I was so scared, I admitted, my voice shaking. I was so scared of losing you. You could never lose me, she said, and kissed me again, softer this time, sweeter. Never. We kissed for what felt like hours, standing in our living room with the city lights glowing through the windows. Every touch felt like a revelation, like I was discovering a part of myself I'd kept locked away for too long. Her hands on my waist, my fingers tracing the line of her jaw, the way she smiled against my lips, it all felt like coming home. Eventually, we made our way to my bedroom, still kissing, stumbling slightly, neither of us wanting to break contact for even a second. We fell onto my bed in a tangle of limbs and laughter, and she looked down at me with such tenderness that I felt tears prick my eyes again. Are you sure? She asked softly, brushing my hair back from my face. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. We made love slowly, gently, taking our time to learn each other in this new way. Every touch was careful, reverent, like we were both aware of how precious this moment was. I memorized the feeling of her skin against mine, the sound of her breathing, the way she whispered my name like it was something sacred. Afterward, we lay tangled together, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. I could hear the city outside, distant sirens, car horns, the endless hum of life, but in here, in this moment, everything was quiet and perfect. What are you thinking? Casey asked, her voice drowsy. That I don't want this to end, I admitted. That I'm terrified I'll wake up tomorrow and this will have been a dream. She lifted her head to look at me, her eyes serious. This is real, Mira. I'm real. We're real. I know, I said. But the fear was still there, coiled in my chest like a snake. I've wanted this for so long that it doesn't feel possible. She kissed me softly. Get used to it, because I'm not going anywhere. I fell asleep with her in my arms, feeling safer and happier than I'd ever felt in my life. When morning came, Sunlight spilled through my windows, warm and golden. I woke slowly, disoriented for a moment, and then I felt it. Casey's arm draped across my waist, her breath soft against my neck, her body warm and solid beside me. It hadn't been a dream. I stayed perfectly still, afraid to move, afraid to do anything that might disturb this perfect moment. I watched her sleep, studying every detail of her face in the morning light, the way her eyelashes cast shadows on her cheeks, the small scar above her eyebrow from when she fell off her bike in middle school, the peaceful expression that made her look younger, softer. This was my person. The person I loved more than anyone else in the world. And somehow, impossibly, she loved me back. Her eyes fluttered open, and when she saw me watching her, she smiled, slow and sleepy and absolutely beautiful. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," I whispered back. "So last night really happened," she said, and I could hear the wonder in her voice. "It really happened." She shifted closer, if that was even possible, and kissed me softly. "Good morning, good morning," I said, and kissed her back, marveling at the fact that I could just do that now. I could kiss her whenever I wanted. We lay there for a while, not talking, just existing in this new reality we'd created. But eventually, Casey propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at me with an expression that was both nervous and hopeful. "So," she said, "what does this mean? For us?" My heart clenched. This was the conversation I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. "What do you want it to mean?" "I asked you first," she said, but she was smiling. I took a breath, gathering my courage. "I don't want this to be a one-time thing. I want to be with you. Actually be with you. I want to figure this out together." Her smile widened, relief washing over her face. "Yeah?" "Yeah," I said firmly. "If that's what you want too. Mira, I've wanted this since college. Maybe even before that, if I'm being honest with myself." She cupped my face in her hand. "I want everything with you. All of it." "Then, I guess we're doing this," I said, feeling giddy and terrified and exhilarated all at once. "I guess we are." She grinned. "Does this mean I get to take you on a real date? Not just a best friend hangout disguised as a date?" I laughed. "I think that's exactly what it means." She kissed me again, deeper this time, and I felt myself melting into it, into her, into this new chapter of our lives that was just beginning. That evening, Casey took me to a cozy Italian restaurant in the West Village. It was small and intimate, with candles on every table and soft music playing in the background. We sat across from each other, but Casey reached across the table and took my hand, threading our fingers together. "Is this weird?" I asked. "Being here like this?" "A little," she admitted. "But good weird, right?" "Definitely good weird," I agreed. We ordered wine and pasta, and we talked the way we always did, easy and comfortable, but now there was an added layer of intimacy to everything. The way she looked at me, the way she ran her thumb over my knuckles, the way she smiled when I laughed at one of her terrible puns. When dessert came, a slice of tiramisu, we'd decided to share. Casey fed me the first bite, and I felt my cheeks heat up. "You're blushing," she teased. "I am not," I protested. But I knew I was. "You totally are. It's adorable." After dinner, we walked through the streets hand in hand. The city was alive around us, people rushing past, street performers on corners, the smell of food trucks and car exhaust, and possibility. And for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't pretending. I was just me, walking with the woman I loved, and it felt like freedom. We stopped under a streetlight, and Casey pulled me close, kissing me softly. A few people walked past, and I tensed slightly. old instincts kicking in. But Casey didn't let go. She just held me closer. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're okay." And we were. We really were. For a while, everything felt perfect. Our mornings became a routine of sleepy kisses and shared coffee. Work nights turned into cuddles on the couch, her head on my shoulder while we watched television. Our apartment felt warmer somehow, even as winter settled in and our broken heater continued its valiant struggle. We existed in our own little bubble, and inside that bubble, everything was beautiful. But we didn't tell anyone. Not my coworkers, not our friends, not my mother who called every Sunday to ask if I was dating anyone. Every time someone asked about my love life, I laughed it off with my usual response. "Still single and thriving?" I told myself it was because we were new, because we were still figuring things out, because I wanted to keep this precious thing protected from the outside world just a little bit longer. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was scared. I was scared of what people would think, scared of their questions and their judgments, scared that saying it out loud would somehow make it less real, less special, less ours. Casey never pushed. She never demanded that I tell people. But I started noticing little things. The way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes when I introduced her as my roommate to a new colleague. The slight stiffness in her shoulders when we were out with friends. And I kept a careful distance between us. The way she went quiet sometimes, staring off into space with an expression I couldn't quite read. One evening, we went out with our friend group Jenna, Marcus, and Tara, people we'd known since college. We were at a bar in Brooklyn, the music loud, the drinks flowing freely. Everyone was in good spirits, laughing and catching up on each other's lives. "So, Mira," Jenna said, leaning across the table with a mischievous grin, "are you seeing anyone? Because I have this friend from work who I think would be perfect for you." My heart stopped. I could feel Casey's presence beside me, could sense her waiting for my answer. "Nope," I said, taking a sip of my drink and forcing a laugh. "Still single and thriving. You know me." "Come on," Jenna pressed. "You've been saying that for years. There has to be someone. You're too amazing to be alone." "I'm fine, really," I insisted. "I'm focusing on work right now. No time for dating." I didn't look at Casey. I couldn't. But I felt the moment she withdrew from me, like a door closing softly but firmly. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Casey was quiet, contributing less and less to the conversation. When she did speak, her voice sounded hollow, automatic. By the time we got home, the silence between us was deafening. She went straight to the couch and sat down, staring at the blank television screen. I stood in the doorway, my heart pounding, knowing something was wrong but not knowing how to fix it. "Casey?" I said softly. She didn't respond at first. Then, without looking at me, she spoke. "Do you not want people to know about us?" "What? No, that's not, because that's what it feels like." Now she turned to look at me, and I saw pain in her eyes that made my chest ache. "Every time someone asks about your love life, you say you're single. You introduce me as your roommate. We act like friends in public. Am I just your secret, Mira?" "You're not a secret," I said. But my voice was weak even to my own ears. "Then what am I?" she asked quietly. "Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like you're ashamed of us, of me." "I'm not ashamed," I said desperately, moving toward her. "I could never be ashamed of you. Of us." "Then what is it?" She stood up, and I could see tears gathering in her eyes. "I waited 5 years, Mira. I waited, and I hoped, and I finally got the courage to be with you. And now it feels like you're the one hiding." "I'm scared," I admitted, my own tears starting to fall. "I'm scared of what people will think. I'm scared of their questions and their judgments. I'm scared that if we tell everyone, somehow it'll change things between us. This is the biggest risk I've ever taken, Casey. The biggest thing I've ever done. And I need time. She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see the war happening behind her eyes. Finally, she spoke, her voice shaking. I already jumped for you, Mira. I already took the risk. I already put my heart on the line. And I'll wait for you. I will, but please. Her voice broke. Please, don't take too long. Because I can't keep being your secret forever. She walked past me toward the bedroom, her bedroom, the one she'd barely slept in since we got together, and closed the door softly behind her. I stood alone in the living room, tears streaming down my face, feeling like I'd just destroyed the best thing in my life. The next few days were agony. Casey still kissed me good morning, still sat with me on the couch at night, still held my hand when we were alone in our apartment. But something had shifted. There was a distance between us now, a carefulness in the way she touched me, like she was protecting herself from getting hurt again. I hated it. I hated what I'd done to us, hated the fear that kept me paralyzed, hated myself for not being brave enough. I sat at my desk one afternoon, supposedly editing a manuscript, but really just staring at the screen without seeing it. The story was about two women finding love against all odds, fighting for their relationship despite the obstacles in their way. They were brave, they were fearless, they were everything I wasn't. I thought about Casey's words. I already jumped for you. She had jumped. She'd been brave enough to admit her feelings, to risk our friendship, to put everything on the line. And what had I done? I'd jumped too, yes, but only halfway, only in private, only where it was safe. That wasn't fair to her. That wasn't fair to us. I closed my laptop and picked up my phone. My hands were shaking as I pulled up my mother's contact. She called every Sunday like clockwork, always asking the same questions. How's work? Are you eating enough? Are you dating anyone nice? And every Sunday, I gave her the same answers. Work's fine. Yes, Mom. No, Mom. Still single. I hit the call button before I could change my mind. Mira! Sweetie, it's not Sunday. Is everything okay? Hi, Mom. Yeah, everything's fine. I need to tell you something. There was a pause. Okay. What is it? I took a deep breath. I'm seeing someone. We've been together for a few weeks now, but I've loved her for a lot longer than that. Another pause, longer this time. Her? Yes. Her name is Casey. You remember Casey, right? My roommate? We've been best friends since college, and recently we became more. I held my breath, waiting for judgment, for confusion, for rejection. But when my mother spoke again, her voice was warm. Oh, honey, Casey is wonderful. I've always thought you two had something special. I could hear the smile in her voice. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Tears were streaming down my face now. I was scared. I didn't know how you'd react. Mira, you're my daughter. I love you no matter who you love. And if Casey makes you happy and I've seen the way you light up when you talk about her, then I'm happy for you. We talked for a while longer, and when I finally hung up, I felt lighter than I had in days. One down, many more to go. Next, I called Jenna. Hey, what's up? Remember when you asked if I was seeing anyone? I said without preamble. Yeah? I lied. I am seeing someone. Casey, we're together. Like, together. Jenna screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Oh my God, I knew it! I've been saying for years that you two were perfect for each other. Marcus owes me $20. I laughed despite my tears. You bet on us? Girl, everyone bet on you two. It was the world's most obvious, unspoken romance. She paused, Why did you lie, though? At the bar? I was scared, I admitted. But I'm done being scared. I love her, Jenna. And I want everyone to know. Good, Jenna said firmly. Because you two deserve to be happy. Out loud. I called Marcus and Tara after that. Each conversation getting easier. Each person reacting with some version of, finally, or we knew it. By the time I was done, it was evening, and Casey still wasn't home from work. I had one more thing to do. I ran to the grocery store and bought ingredients for pancakes, Casey's favorite breakfast food. Then I stopped by the florist and bought a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite flowers. Back at the apartment, I lit candles around the living room and put on soft music. I changed into the red dress I'd worn on our first real date. When Casey finally came home, tired and worn from another long day, she stopped in the doorway, staring at the scene before her. "What's all this?" she asked carefully. I walked over to her, taking her hands in mine. I told my mom. I told Jenna, Marcus, Tara. I told everyone about us. Her eyes widened. "You did?" I was terrified, I admitted. But not as terrified as losing you. Not as terrified as watching the light fade from your eyes every time I pretended we were just friends. I cupped her face in my hands. "I love you, Casey. I want everyone to know. I want to hold your hand in public and introduce you as my girlfriend and post silly pictures of us together. I want everything with you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to be brave enough to say that." Tears were streaming down her face now. "Only if you promise me this is forever." "It already is," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. It always has been. From that first kiss 5 years ago, from that boring lecture where we met, from every moment we've shared since then. It's always been you, Casey. Always. She pulled me into a kiss that tasted like tears and relief and joy all mixed together. When we finally pulled apart, she was smiling, really smiling, the way that made her whole face light up. "I love you," she said. "God, Mira, I love you so much." "I love you too," I said. "And I'm going to spend every day making sure you know it." We held each other for a long time, swaying slightly to the music, the candles flickering around us, our future stretching out before us bright and full of possibility. From that day forward, everything changed. We held hands walking down the street. We kissed goodbye on subway platforms. We posted pictures together on social media. Casey's arm around my waist, my head on her shoulder, both of us grinning like idiots. Our friends threw us a little celebration dinner, toasting to the world's most obvious couple finally getting their act together. Jenna even made Marcus pay up on their bet, which made everyone laugh. My mother called Casey directly to tell her she'd always thought of her as family and was thrilled to make it official. Casey cried during that phone call, and I held her afterward, reminded once again of how lucky I was to have her. But it wasn't all perfect. Love never is, and ours was no exception. One night, Casey's phone lit up with a text notification while we were watching a movie. I glanced at it reflexively and saw a name I didn't recognize. Maya. "Who's Maya?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Casey looked at the phone, then quickly away. "My ex. From before I moved in with you. I don't know why she's texting me now." "What did she say?" "I don't know. I didn't read it." She looked at me seriously. "And I don't plan to. You're all I want, Mira." I nodded, trying to push down the jealousy that had flared up unbidden. Okay, but the doubt lingered. What if Maya wanted Casey back? What if she was better for Casey than I was? What if I wasn't enough? A few days later, Casey had a particularly rough day at work. A major client had rejected everything she'd presented, and her boss had implied it was her fault. She came home exhausted and irritable, barely speaking during dinner. "How was your day?" I asked, trying to fill the uncomfortable silence. "Fine," she said shortly. "Do you want to talk about—" "I really don't want to talk right now, okay?" she snapped. I flinched. She'd never spoken to me like that before. I stood up, suddenly feeling like I was suffocating. "Fine. I'll give you some space." I went to my room and closed the door, sitting on my bed with tears burning my eyes. Was this how it started? The arguments, the distance, the slow dissolution of everything we'd built? A few minutes later, there was a soft knock on my door. "Mira?" Casey's voice was quiet, apologetic. "Can I come in?" "It's open," I said. She entered slowly and sat beside me on the bed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you. I had a terrible day, and I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair." "It's okay," I said, but my voice was small. "No, it's not." She took my hand. "You didn't deserve that. I was frustrated and tired, but that's no excuse for treating you badly." I looked at her, and suddenly all my fears came tumbling out. "I don't know how to do this, Casey. What if I mess it up? What if I'm not good enough at being in a relationship? What if we're better as friends than as girlfriends? We both will mess up," she said gently. "Neither of us has done this before, not with each other, not like this. We're going to have bad days. We're going to argue. We're going to hurt each other sometimes without meaning to." She squeezed my hand. "But we'll learn. Together. We'll figure it out." "I'm scared," I whispered. "I am too," she admitted. "But loving you feels right, Mira. Even when everything else feels wrong. Even when I'm having the worst day. Coming home to you feels right. And that's enough for me." I leaned into her, and she wrapped her arms around me, holding me tight. We sat like that for a long time, letting the fear and doubt wash over us, and then recede, leaving only the solid truth of what we had. "We're going to be okay," she whispered into my hair. "Yeah," I said, finally believing it. "We are." Spring arrived slowly, transforming the city from gray and cold to green and blooming. Flowers appeared in window boxes, people shed their heavy coats, and the whole world seemed to wake up and stretch toward the sun. Our friends decided to throw a party to celebrate officially celebrating our relationship, though Jenna insisted it was really just an excuse to day drink and eat too much food. She wasn't wrong. We gathered on a friend's rooftop, the same rooftop where Casey and I had our first almost moment. There was music and laughter and too much wine, and everyone kept toasting to us until Casey and I were both blushing and laughing and thoroughly embarrassed. "To Mira and Casey," Jenna said, raising her glass high. "Proof that sometimes the best love stories start with friendship. And also proof that Marcus can't read obvious romantic tension to save his life." Everyone laughed and clinked glasses. I looked at Casey, and she looked back at me, her eyes full of love and happiness, and everything I'd been too afraid to hope for just months ago. That evening, as the sun began to set and the party wound down, Casey and I found ourselves alone on the rooftop, the same place where everything almost happened. The same place where I'd almost kissed her, almost told her, almost taken the leap, but pulled back at the last second. "Do you remember that night?" I asked, leaning against the railing beside her. "Every detail," she said. "I remember thinking that maybe you felt the same way I did. And then the music stopped, and the moment passed, and I convinced myself I'd imagined it. I was so close to kissing you that night," I admitted. "So close to telling you everything. What stopped you?" "Fear." I turned to look at her. "Always fear. Fear of losing you. Fear of ruining what we had. fear of being brave enough to reach for what I really wanted. She took my hand, threading our fingers together. And now? Now I'm still scared sometimes, I said honestly. But I'm more scared of a life without you than a life where I have to be brave. She smiled and pulled me close. Do you ever think about where we started? That first lecture where we bonded over hating group projects? All the time, I said. And I'd do it all again, every scared moment, every almost kiss, every night I spent loving you in silence just to end up right here. Whatever comes next, she said. We'll face it together. Together, I agreed. She kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And I kissed her back, no longer afraid of who might see, no longer worried about what anyone might think, because this was us. This was our love story, and it didn't matter that it had taken 5 years and 1,000 almost moments to get here. What mattered was that we'd found our way to each other, and we were brave enough now to hold on. Our love wasn't perfect. We still argued sometimes. We still had bad days and moments of doubt, but we always came back to each other. We always chose each other, and in the end, that was what mattered. In each other, we didn't just find love. We found home. We found the courage to be ourselves. We found everything we'd been looking for in the one place we'd never thought to look right beside us, where it had always been. And as the city lights flickered on around us, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, I knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning. Our beginning. Together. Thank you for joining me on Mira and Casey's journey. If their story touched your heart, please show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing for more beautiful love stories like this one. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever been in love with your best friend? What country are you watching from? I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear your story. Until next time, remember love is always worth the leap.